All right, so picking back up, we're on 7.2. So we've got 5 objectives for the day. Describe the structure and function of the cell nucleus. Describe the role of vacuoles, lysosomes, and the cytoskeleton. Identify the role of ribosomes, endoplasmic reticulum, and Golgi apparatus in making proteins. And describe the function of the chloroplast and the mitochondria in the cell. And then finally, describe the function of the cell membrane. So those are our objectives. You can see there's a lot of vocabulary over here. So let me jump into the first part of this. So cell organization consists of, as we mentioned, that cell membrane, and that separates what's inside of the cell and outside of the cell. And again, we're looking at eukaryotic cells. They're the ones that contain a nucleus. Just inside of the cell membrane, there's the fluid portion of the cell. This is called cytoplasm. The prefix CYTO refers to cells, and plasm refers to kind of the liquid, so it's the cell liquid. And this liquid allows chemicals to react, so the molecules can move and bump into each other. Then we've got organelles that are specialized structures within the cytoplasm. And then finally, we've got the nucleus, which contains the DNA and controls the activity of the cell. So here's just kind of a visual. You can see the nucleus, you can see the cytoplasm, here's the cell membrane, and again, you can kind of think of this as a bubble of chemistry that can happen inside of here. And then here's just kind of a visual looking at a cell. You can see the cell membrane on the outside, sometimes called the plasma membrane. All sorts of things on the inside, your Golgi, centrioles, mitochondria, and so on. And then the nucleus right there. So, there is a video called The Inner Life of the Cell. I'm not going to play it here through this video, but I strongly recommend that you follow the link in Canvas through the slides and go ahead and watch that video. And then the second one is really neat because you can watch it, and it's about 7 minutes, but you can just kind of pause it at any point. It's a 360 virtual reality video, so you can actually scan around and look at different parts of the cell from the inside, which is pretty amazing to see. Okay, so looking at our questions, describe the relationship between the cytoplasm and the nucleus of the cell. And the relationship is that this nucleus is found inside the cytoplasm, but is not a part of the cytoplasm. And they work together to help keep the cell alive. Question 2 says, what does the term organelle mean literally? And it means little organ. So organ, like your lungs, your heart, your liver, those are organs in your body that keep you alive. So organelles are the little organs inside of cells that keep cells alive. So visual analogy, so if we think of the cell as a factory, which is an excellent analogy to make because factories and cells do many of the same things here. So in this case, we're looking inside the nucleus, and we see a little person at a desk, and we see a person kind of making something that's kind of getting fed out of the, it's actually going out of the nucleus there. So the little office person at the desk here is kind of like the control center, but it's also the source where we send messages out. And in reality, this is what happens, is our nucleus kind of keeps the master copy of everything, and then we send a working copy out to the middle part of the cell where it reads those things, and like a factory, it's going to build whatever it's told to build. So in this case, the working copy is a molecule known as RNA. And we'll cover more of this when we get to genetics there. 4 says, which feature of the nucleus is not clearly shown? There's something called chromatin, which we'll get into more later. And then another possible analogy, you can think of anything you want, but they give the example of airport control tower. You know, you've got a controlling thing that controls things moving in and out, or police dispatch works kind of the same way. And then just like factories, we need to have raw materials that we're going to work in, so you have to way to organize and store those raw materials, and then you have to have a way to clean up and get rid of the things that you're done with. And likewise, factories need to have like an actual building, a structure that holds them together. So the cytoskeleton is what provides the framework for this cell. So cyto again means cell, and skeleton, so this is the cell skeleton here. And then we'll talk about these things called tubulins in just a little bit. So here's just kind of a visual. So here's a vacuole in an animal, here's a vacuole in a plant. Animal vacuoles are much smaller, plant vacuoles are much bigger, but the role of vacuoles is to contain stuff. They're the storage things. So in animal cells, digestive enzymes or proteins. In plant cells, water, salts, sugars, all sorts of things like that. So next thing we've got is lysosomes. Lyse means to cut, some refers to body, so it's just a little bubble that contains enzymes that help break down cell waste. And here you can see a mitochondria. The lysosome is coming in and breaking down the mitochondria. And then, like we mentioned, the cytoskeleton provides kind of the rigidity and structure to the cell. So here you can see these different parts of the cytoskeleton kind of spread throughout the cell. intermediate filaments, microtubules, and active filaments. But just know that it's the girders or the beams that hold the building together. It's the same thing in the cell. That's what the cytoskeleton is doing. And then the centrioles are kind of different. They're a unique type of a molecular tubing arrangement that help animal cells start to divide. Plant cells don't have these, animal cells do. So it's cell division of animal cells. All right. And then answering our questions, what are vacuoles? Right, they enclose sacs that store materials such as salts, water, proteins, and carbohydrates. Two roles of the central vacuoles in plants. They store materials and then they support the cell. And then contractile vacuoles. So on the upper right here, you see this little kind of thing getting bigger and smaller. So some cells that are like single cells that live in water, they actually can have too much water flow into them. So they have to get rid of the water. So these contractile vacuoles pump excess water out of the cell, while other types of cells hold material inside the cell. So kind of different functions there. Okay, then looking at kind of labeling things here. So again, it's hard to tell from the picture, but these are our centrioles. This is that lysosome. And lysosomes and vacuoles, you can't really tell the difference by looking at them. You have to examine the chemistry. And then here's our central vacuole kind of in there with the plant cell on it. 11, what is the role of lysosomes? To break down big molecules and waste. You can kind of think of lysosomes as somewhat like the janitors of the cells. They move around and clean up the clutter, but they're also kind of like the shredders at the same time. They break big things up into little things. 11, which structures of the cytoskeleton are found in animal cells but not plant cells. Centrioles, again, we said centrioles are involved in animal cell division. And then what structure of the cytoskeleton we show the same. And then microtubules is flagellum. It's this thing called a cilia, and just to kind of show you real briefly what it looks like. So the flagella is like this long kind of whip-like thing that moves kind of like a corkscrew fashion. It spins around and it helps things move through the water. So this is an organism called a euglena. You can see up here or down here, and use that flagella to move through the water. Cilia molecularly looks very much the same, but it's much shorter. And they, rather than spinning around corkscrew fashion, they just beat back and forth. And so you can see them going there or going there. And then they help, we have them in our respiratory system, in our lungs. They help sweep stuff, that comes drifting in. It gets caught on the cilia and then gets swept out of our lungs to our throat, or we can cough it out or we can swallow it. Okay, so questions. Organelle that stores water, proteins, or organic molecules is hopefully you're going to get this one right. Hopefully you know that is D, the vacuole. All right. Organelles that are found in which part of the cell? We can look those over, and hopefully you can get that part. That it is A is what we're looking for there. All right, and then we'll go ahead and pause there. That'll be our stretch break, and we'll pick back up with the next part just after this.